Our preview for the 2025 Bears. Their offseason in 60 seconds. Hired Ben Johnson as the head coach. Hired Dennis Allen as the DC. Declan Doyle as the offensive coordinator. Signed Dio Odengbo, 3 years, $48 million. Signed Grady Jarrett, 3 years, $43 million. Drew Dahlman, 3 years, $42 million. Traded for Joe Tooney, signed him to an extension. Traded for Jonah Jackson, signed him to a small extension that was kind of really a pay cut. Kyler Gordon, 3 years, $40 million. TJ Edwards, 3 years, $20 million. Tyson Bagent to a 2-year extension. Small deals for Olamide Zaccheaus, Durham Smythe, Devin Duvernay. Drafted Colson Lovin, 10th overall. Luther Burden, 39th overall. Ozzie Trapillo, 56th overall. And defensive tackle Shamar Turner, 62nd overall. Lost Keenan Allen, Coleman Shelton, Tevin Jenkins, and Darrell Taylor. Despite my previous tone, I am going to start this conversation about what I'm excited to watch for the 2025 Chicago Bears. I'm excited to watch an offense that theoretically, Derek, should give this team and its quarterback an actual shot. It has been a while since that has happened.
I mean, I don't remember the last time that it really has happened, unless you want to count like the 1 year with Mitch Trubisky where they were just doing a bunch of RPO nonsense, which wasn't a fun version of offense to even watch. Like, it kind of worked, but it wasn't fun. This, with Ben Johnson coming from the most well-oiled machine, being the engine of that most well-oiled machine, the offensive line investments, a million different skill players, which, like, did they need to draft inside all those guys the times that they did? Who knows? But like, now they have as many options as they do. And you have a quarterback you spent the first overall pick on a year and a half ago. Like, there's a chance that this is really, really awesome to watch.
It's funny. What's the thing that goes around social media that's like a whatever looks like it looks like a Phantom until a Phantom pulls up. Like, I can't.
Yes, yeah.
A Chrysler 300.
Yeah.
A Chrysler 300. Yeah.
I can't believe I got excited about last year's version of the Bears. Like, I totally fell for that. I did, and I'll own it. But now, sitting here with this situation, I'm like, why did I think that was good? And hopefully a year from now, I'm not doing the same thing, but I really am. I'm excited to see a lot of the same personnel with a better offensive line, with a coach who knows how to design and call an offense. I'm excited to see what Ben Johnson has in mind for Caleb Williams. I'm not saying the Bears are going to do any goofy college football. Caleb Williams, just as a guy, is a big departure from Jared Goff. Like, Jared Goff is a throwback quarterback. Like, you don't want him leaving the pocket more often than not. Whereas Caleb Williams is an archetype for the modern, like, mobile, Gumby-armed quarterback. I'm excited to see what a quarterback that talented looks like in a Ben Johnson offense.
I think what's actually really gotten me excited too, like what really I think got me over the line with this, obviously all the skill players are cool. Ben Johnson's great, but it's the way that the coordinator is being talked about. Like, we all remember the Jackson Smith and Jigba clip last year about Shane Waldron, where he's like, are we live? Whereas every clip of guys talking about the Ben Johnson offense, they might say like, it's hard and like there's a lot going on, and that's absolutely true. But they seem pretty enthusiastic about how different all of this is. And that to me is like, okay, if guys are at least buying into like what they think the ceiling for this can be, even if it's a little rocky at first, like, that is incredibly encouraging to me.
We talked about this last year, Derek, when we were previewing the NFC North, and we were talking about Shane Waldron, and I was just talking about how hard that Seattle offense felt, even if the underlying numbers looked pretty good for those couple years. The Lions offense does not feel hard. The Lions offense has never felt hard. Thinking about the stat I just mentioned earlier in the show about the Lions, who had 107 EPA on throws less than 5 air yards last year. They did such an incredible job of building in the details of that offense to make it easier for everybody. And there are two things that I'll point out here. I've mentioned this conversation a bunch over the last year, but in talking to Jared Goff last year about his relationship with Ben Johnson and the dialogue between those two guys and how well and how clearly Ben Johnson articulated the intention of what they were trying to accomplish within the offense and how easy that made Jared Goff's life as he was figuring out the mechanics of each individual play. That is something that was clearly missing from what the Bears offense was last year. There was no intent behind how anything was going in the way that Caleb Williams was seeing what was in front of him. That will be communicated to him clearly this year. Whether or not he can handle that is an entirely different thing, but that will be communicated to him clearly. And the other part of this is deployment of players. Like, the ways that the receivers in the Chicago offense last year were used made no sense. Zero. The skill sets were never used in the proper way. And even now, looking at what they're doing, where Rome is your X, DJ Moore is like this movable piece that you're going to scheme up touches for. And then Luther Burden is this kind of, and we'll see, Zaccheaus as well, but like Luther Burden is this kind of like explosive slot player that you'll create some yak opportunities for. I have faith that when you watch it on Sunday, the component parts and how it is constructed will make sense. And that's all I'm willing to say, but I'm at least excited to watch an offense where I'm at least willing to say that. Derek, what are you excited to watch for the 2025 Chicago Bears?
This is at least partly because, like, I knew we were gonna talk about the offense, which is obviously the most excited part, but I am, like, genuinely really excited about Dennis Allen and his defense. He's been I think we all hate Dennis Allen, the head coach, which is fair. It's not turned out very well the last couple of times that he's done it, but Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator, man, like, some of his defenses, especially earlier on in his tenure with the Saints, were awesome, and obviously they had really good players that were able to do that, but the way that he called stuff, the way that I think we think of a lot of different guys like right now as like being on the forefront of a lot more of the quarters, too high stuff. But like Dennis Allen really was also one of those guys who was kind of getting ahead of that and playing a lot of the match quarter stuff because Demario Davis could cover the middle of the field. They had two safeties that could handle all that stuff. Like Lattimore could just run with guys in tight coverage. So I think he's always been a guy who's been able to build the right defense with the players that he has. And they brought in a number of those guys, especially on the front, to help him do that. You bring in a veteran like Grady Jarrett up front to be a little bit explosive. Dio Odangbo on the edge next to Montez Sweat, which just creates these two massive 275-pound long arm freak people that's exactly what Dennis Allen wants. So I just feel like Dennis Allen to me is a defensive mind who has a very clear vision for what he wants to do, even if it isn't always as exciting as, the Brian Flores's and Steve Spagnuolo's. So I trust that this is going to be a good unit. And if things go well, like they can be a top 10 defense again.
There's no doubt. I mean, you look at what Dennis Allen's history has been over the last several years when he's been a primary defensive coordinator versus a head coach. Even his first year as a head coach, the Saints defense was good every single year. Like every single year, the Saints defense was good. And I think the Bears have the requisite talent to be a pretty good defense in a Dennis Allen defense. That hire was like one of the more like the things that was most exciting about the early days of the Ben Johnson announcement is that Dennis Allen will be coming over as the defensive coordinator. In this cycle specifically, it was going to be hard to do better than convincing Dennis Allen to be your defensive coordinator, especially when you already had this 4-down personnel that fit what his vision of a defense is anyway.
That's actually a really good point. They didn't have to do, they brought in some of his guys that he wants, but they didn't have to do as much shifting with the personnel as you might with like the way that we've talked about the Falcons or whoever.
Yes.
I'm all the way in on any failed head coach who goes back to calling a defense. Like I'm sure it doesn't have a 100% hit rate, but it hits very, very often, from Dan Quinn to Vic Fangio to
Vance Joseph's been good.
Steve Spagnuolo. Come on. Like the list goes on and on and on. So I got no problem buying that this is going to work out great.
Let's talk about the swing points for the 2025 Bears. Where do you think the Bears season could potentially pivot, Derek?
Speaking of that defense, while I do think that they can be very good, I think the ceiling might be determined on how much we get out of the secondary. I think on paper, it's a really good unit. Like Jalen Johnson is one of the better corners in the NFL. Tyreek Stevenson, I know, is like kind of a meme because of that play, and he did not play as very well down the stretch of that season. But I think we all believe that the potential for a really good player is there. When Kyler Gordon's on the field, he's a demon from the slot. So like their corners, I think, are really good. And then in theory, like if Brisker is healthy and on the field, he's solid. So like they have a lot of talent back there. I'm a little bit dubious of a couple of things. One, Jalen Johnson is coming into the year a little bit banged up, so that's a bit of a question.
That has not been talked about enough, by the way. The fact that Jalen Johnson still has not practiced and he's the most important player on the Bears defense.
Yeah, that like the 7th best corner in the league just isn't ready for the season is a little bit concerning, especially when, again, like they really need him. Stevenson, again, I think we like the potential, but I think him getting back to his best ball is a little bit of a question. And then the safety room isn't terrible, but they also feel like weird fits to me for a Dennis Allen defense. Like this to me this is a unit where Byard is like a clear center fielder at this stage in his career. Brisker, you want a little bit more down, kind of just playing in the box and hitting and stuff. Dennis Allen, to me, when I think of his best defense, they do a little bit more split field safety stuff. So I wonder how that works out. Like, I think on paper this is good, but there are like more questions than I would have liked, I think.
I was going to say this is a theme for the show, I guess, but like the investment of capital doesn't always guarantee results. But like I have the Bears R lads in front of me, and if you just go down it and look at where the guys were drafted or what they're being paid, you're like, holy, this could be a really special defense. But It's not played on paper. I mean, you want more from Montez Sweat this year. You want Grady Jarrett to be the guy that we remember from his best days in Atlanta. We want Jalen Johnson to be healthy. We want Jaquan Brisker to be healthy. The linebackers make a lot of money. You hope that they maintain their level of play. Like, there's a lot of room for variance here. And I think my big swing point would just be, what is the ceiling of the defense? Like, if all that stuff I just said happens, this could be a classic, amazing Bears defense. And if not, then maybe it's a little disappointing and maybe this team's not as good as we thought because they can't pick it up if the offense struggles.
You want me to build the case for you? Because I can very easily build the case for you because I think about it all the time in
Let's do
terms
it.
of how this team could reach its ceiling defensively. They need one of the young front players to be a different player than he was last year. Like, they need a significant step forward. And I'm including Dayo Odengbo in that, right? Like, the argument for why you would sign Odengbo to that contract is he's young enough where his best football is arguably in front of him. So if we can have Odengbo or Gervon Dexter be like a step above what they were last year. And Montez Sweat, who apparently has looked fantastic during training camp. Like, they're very happy about how he's coming into this season versus how he looked last year. If you have two guys up front that are true difference makers and your depth is just significantly better there, which it is. It's undeniably better, especially in the interior. We'll see what happens with Shamar Turner when he gets back. He's been banged up. But if it's Andrew Billings, Gervon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, and Shamar Turner versus what they had last year, it's a very different situation. And then Austin Booker as like your third edge rusher in year 2. Can you get a little bit more of him? So I think that's part of it. In the secondary, I think it's Tyreek Stevenson recapturing some of the flashes that we saw from him as a rookie. I don't think he was ever in danger of losing that other outside corner job. Like, he's too talented, and we've seen him be a good player in stretches in the NFL. I think that's kind of this thing that they've kind of alluded to where we're just trying to create as much competition as possible with every single position, and that's why Nahshon Wright has pushed him a little bit. And then I think Kevin Byard is a better tackler and a little bit more physical at this point in his career still than maybe you do, Derek. And so I do think that the safety room might be okay even in this sort of system, but I think that is like the positive spin on what the overall defense could be collectively this year. Let's get to what is keeping us up at night. What is keeping you up at night, Dave, about the 2025 Chicago Bears?
I just hope for all of the good work that they have done, and I love the moves all over the interior of the offensive line. It's the inverse of what we've talked about with some of these other teams. I spend a lot of time wondering if their plan at left tackle is going to completely sink all of these other moves. The Tooney trade, Dahlman, Jonah Jackson. Obviously, you drafted Darnell Wright high, and then you look over. And I mean, Braxton Jones has played decently enough considering some of the situations that he's been in over the course of his career, but it hasn't looked amazing this preseason. You obviously drafted Ozzie Trapillo this year. Doesn't sound like he's going to win that job, although as of recording, I don't think it's been settled. And then, I mean, like, go down the list. Kieran Amegaji, Theo Benedette, who like joined this competition within the last 10 days.
That's not real, I think is the first thing that I want to say about this. Amedeji has been banged up, and I think they have transitioned to a point in camp where because Trapillo is going to be their swing tackle, they needed to start playing him at right tackle in order to start getting him reps there. I don't think under any circumstances is Theo Benedette a part of the left tackle competition for the Chicago Bears.
That makes me feel a little bit better, but it doesn't change the fact that for all of the resources that have been spent everywhere else, and look, I get it. You can't have a first round pick at every position on the offensive line, not if you're paying attention to the rest of your roster anyway, but left tackle just looks like it could be a blinking red light. And I don't really love that, Robert. And maybe I'm being influenced by just having moved to Chicago, because every time I turn on the radio or I watch the post game on the preseason games, this is what we're talking about. Like, it feels like there is a lot of concern about left tackle, and I totally understand it.
I think it's overstated, personally, because I think this is about how healthy Braxton Jones is. Braxton Jones has come along slowly because he's coming off of a major injury, and I think still isn't 100% there physically. If he gets to a place by the time the season kicks off where he's at like 90, 95%, and you can get something out of Braxton Jones that is like what you've gotten out of him over the last couple years, I think that gives you a reasonable floor at left tackle. If you're in a spot where Braxton Jones is your 5th best offensive lineman, you're okay. He's been fine over the last couple of years. This is a question of whether or not he will be healthy enough to be something like the player that we've seen over the last couple of years. If that is the case and all the other offensive line moves work, if those guys are hits with Dolman Jackson and Joe Thuney, I am not concerned about Braxton Jones if he is the 2023-2024 version of Braxton Jones. I'm not.
My only pushback on that would be he's healthy enough to play in the preseason. He's healthy enough to be on the field. And if he's not all the way right, I totally get that. But healthy enough to be on the field and not looking great in exhibition play, I at least understand why people are a little skeevy looking at it.
I do not think he is 100% physically yet, is what
That
I
feels
would
like
say.
testing the waters to see if he can go. And,
I think
maybe
it's just working his way back.
Yeah.
I think he will be the left tackle. And I
I
think
do
that
too.
the hope is he'll be something close to what he's been over the last couple of years by the time the season gets started.
I will say, I think in terms of like if he's your 5th best offensive lineman, I do think that's a good spot to be in. I will say, like, perception wise, if he's their 5th best offensive lineman now, we will be mad at him more than we were the last couple of years.
That's true.
Yeah, like,
I think that's absolutely
yeah.
true. What's keeping me up in mind about the Bears is very specific, but at the same time, not specific at all. And it is that turn down and sack that Caleb Williams took in that second preseason game. I'm sure most people have not seen it, but there was a play, I believe, on the first drive of that game or the second drive, I can't remember, where he has Cole Kmet coming open on like a little wrap in breaker with a linebacker being tied down by, I think it was Zacchaeus in front of him.
This is against the Chiefs, right?
And it was against the Chiefs. And he turns it down and takes a sack and panics a little bit in the pocket. And I contrast that with how he looked in the first preseason game, where I thought he played on time. I thought he showed a lot of command at the line of scrimmage. I was very encouraged by all of that, and I was very discouraged by this moment and a couple others from that preseason game against the Chiefs. And this brings me to just what I'm worried about in general. I think that this offense will give him a shot. I wonder if the processing on time aspects of playing quarterback, if he will get there. Because this is an offense that will give him a chance if he can close that gap a little bit. I just still have doubts about whether he can, based on how last season went. Going back and watching the highlights from last year, the talent is undeniable. The elasticity in the arm, even just like the mechanics of how he plays quarterback, the footwork in the pocket, the base that he plays with. Like, there's so many things that he does well. I just wonder in those moments where we're asking him to read something out on time and to pull the trigger into tight windows, can he do that stuff? And I think I'm not writing it off yet, but this is what's keeping me up at night, and his inability to get there in that specific area in an offense that's going to give him a chance. That is what is keeping me up at night.
Okay, so I know I'm going to sound like a ridiculous Caleb defender. I kind of have an alternate take on that play. I don't think it was that bad. I think so on the right side they have like curl swing. So that's where he's trying to open. It's 2nd and 3. He's just trying to get the ball out. And then on the left side is like a levels concept where you have the number 3s running like the dig, wrap, whatever you want to call it. And then they've got 2 5-and-ins coming behind it. I think because it's 2nd and 3, he opens to the right, immediately realizes it's man coverage, inside leverage on the curl. He's like, I can't throw that. He comes back to the other side. I don't think he's looking at the dig. I think he's looking at the first fin. And so that to me is like fine, because then he's like, okay, he immediately checks that off, and then he works to the number 1 and turns that down. I think a great quarterback would see, he looks at the first 5-and-in, he can maybe see the linebacker driving down on it and realize there'll be a window to commit over the middle. Like Matthew Stafford makes that throw because he's just good at that type of stuff. Caleb, being a younger quarterback, I think was like, I'm just going to stick to the progression and moves to number 1, the outside fin. I'm more concerned that he didn't throw that. Like, Rome is open on that, and like he should throw that. It's the last read in your progression. Like, throw that.
It's not the specific throw to commit. It is about the timing of that play overall and the decision making over the course of the timing of that play. And that's my concern here. Like, I think that we don't know if he's going to ever be able to get there in that specific element of his game. And the idea that if you're confident that he can, like, you have to tell yourself a story based on how last season went. And again, I think that he can eventually get there, but he is not there now. And that is what worries me the most about how this is going to go.
I'm watching it as we are talking right now. And to the point that we just had about left tackle, really the whole offensive line. Like, the pocket is immaculate. Like, there
Yeah,
is
he was protected. That was not the issue.
there is
Yes.
no complaint here. And so I'll contradict myself a little bit and say, even if left tackle is something I prefer would be better, like, I'm like, we gotta draw the line somewhere between like, "Hey, man, get the ball out. What are we doing here?" Versus constantly complaining about whether or not the protection is good enough. I'm reasonably confident the protection combined with the guy that's designing the offense is gonna give Caleb Williams a chance to deliver the ball if he's
That is the
willing to
exact
do it.
place where I
Yeah.
land right here, is that
Yeah.
stuff is good enough. That
Mhm.
play, that's why it's not even just the exact details of the progression, Derek,
Yeah.
is that play is an expression of what is available to him now. The guys are open. The
Yeah.
protection is good. Can you make the most of this? That's where I sit.
And
Because all those other excuses that we had last year, they will be gone. They are going to be
Yeah.
gone. And it is now up to him to actually take advantage of all of this stuff.
And I think maybe to me, like, perception-wise, why maybe I'm a little bit more just willing to wait it out is that for me, it's not a he doesn't see it thing. Like, I think he gets how to play the game. I think what we saw, especially last year, and maybe this is some scar tissue that he's developed and really needs to get over. I think he's just kind of scared to make mistakes as a passer. Like, I think
It might be true.
he sees the game well. I don't have issues of him like progressing, moving his feet to reads, any of that stuff. It's just sometimes he doesn't want to throw the ball into what is not like a great look. And that him not throwing to the number one there at Roma Dunze, it's like, okay, the corner is kind of still draped over him, like whatever, but it's like, it's the final read in your progression. You're going to get hit if you don't throw this ball. You got to just trust that your 6'2" X receiver is going to catch the ball. And so that stuff I do think he needs to work through.
Let's get to what we're watching in the first month of the season for the Chicago Bears. Dave, what do you got?
I'm so intrigued by the Bears' 12 personnel, and that goes that goes with the territory when you draft a tight end in the top 10. Obviously, Cole Kmet's already there. He's not a superstar tight end, but he's a top 10 highest paid tight end in football. I think his contract's like 8th or ninth, something like that. So, two big time investments that you have on offense. I assume they're going to be on the field a fair amount. Obviously, Colston Loveland has looked really fun in the stuff I've seen in the preseason. He just looks like a sure-handed receiver. He looks like a guy that's going to be able to help you in a lot of ways. And then you tie that to the Ben Johnson of it all, which is that the Lions used 12 personnel on 32% of their offensive snaps last year. That third most in the NFL. They love this. And by the way, the Lions didn't have two receiver options at tight end the way that the Bears do. So that's another fun wrinkle here where, last year we were so focused on the three receivers in Chicago. And this year I'm like, man, how much time are three receivers even going to be on the field for the Bears? Because I feel like Kmet and Loveland are going to be out there all the time.
I love that you mentioned the two passing threats because this is the crux of the conversation here. Most teams, this idea of the advantages 12 personnel gives you, they're theoretical advantages that never become a reality. You're either in a disadvantage when you have those two guys out there because if one of them is working from the slot or just in any sort of scenario, he is not a matchup advantage against the players that he's playing against. A slot receiver would be better in that situation. You can make a reasonable argument that Colston Loveland might be a matchup advantage in a lot of the places that you're going to put him. And I think that's the difference between him and Kmet and how they see them. They think that Loveland is truly somebody you do not have to scheme stuff up for. And we've seen this. They have him as the number one in these 1x3s, and he will continue to do that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kmet, you do have to scheme some stuff up for him, but when it's only one guy, then you're putting yourself in an advantage. You combine that with the fact that a lot of these teams that are playing in 12 personnel a lot, the Bills come to mind. These tight ends are zeros as blockers.
That's what I was
That
going to
is
say,
not
yeah.
the case here.
Yeah.
And so Loveland, I think, will be better in line as a blocker as he gets a little bit stronger. But the length that he has, he could do that at Michigan. And so this idea of, well, if they play nickel to our 12 personnel, which most defenses do now, most teams want to believe when that happens, we can grind you down in the run game, but then you actually see them try to do it and it's not available to them. I think the Bears are the team, based on who those two guys are, that because they're capable blockers, both of them, you can grind teams down if they try to play nickel against you. So all of these things that teams try to tell themselves are benefits of playing 12 personnel that never actually come to fruition, I think the Bears are built in a way where it actually could come to fruition for them.
I so love that you mentioned the blocking because like when the Bills drafted Kincaid, I was like, he's a cool receiver, but this is 11 and a half personnel. Like, this is not a 12. This is not a tight end in the way that we're thinking of it. It's why last year their big pivot was, all right, we're going to put a 6 offensive lineman on the field. Because when they needed an extra body, it's like,
That's
we're just
exactly
going to
right.
throw another tackle out there. Like, these other guys are not
And
helping
more
us.
teams are doing that, where in
Mhm.
order to get that extra tight end surface, they're putting another offensive lineman out there because the tight ends can't do it. I think if the Bears are in these like YY wing looks with both tight ends out there, you can create surfaces with multiple blockers that are actual blockers.
Yeah, it's like, it has me very enticed. Like, of the 2 tight ends that came out in this class, like, if you wanted the flashy, just, like, do cool stuff with the ball in their hands, like, Tyler Warren made a lot of sense. If you just wanted the, like, pivot tight end where we can do anything in the offense with him and build it around him, that was Loveland, and giving that to Ben Johnson is pretty cool.
From the time the Patriots broke onto the scene and made 12 personnel really cool, I think every team in the league has experimented with this and been like, we're going to be a matchup nightmare. And it's way easier said than done. And I'm not willing to say the Bears can do it, but well, A, I'm curious, and B, I'm optimistic that it can go better than it has for a lot of other teams.
My answer to this, what I'm watching, was just the skill position deployment in general. So the tight ends are a huge part of this. How does the running back room shake out? Like, it feels like Monangai is going to get a real chance to be like their innings-eating running back within this offense, where they don't want to give that role to DeAndre Swift necessarily, and I think there's some concerns about what Roschon Johnson can be. So how the running back rotation shakes out there, is there somebody that pops loose that's cut that's involved in that mix? And then the receivers, it's like, again, I think that they have a vision for how these guys are supposed to be used. And I think how quickly Luther Burden gets to be involved here, how he gets involved, what the split looks like with him and Zacchaeus. Like, we talked about this last year with the skill position talent they had on paper, and none of it mattered because when you're using guys in the wrong spots, you're going to get 70% of all of them. I think that at least within this offense, we'll get something closer to 95% of all of them. We'll just have to see what the actual roles are when the games actually start. Let's get to what is success for the 2025 Chicago Bears. I'll just do this.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's very
Go for it.
simple. Finishes a top half of the league offense, very modest goals, top half of the league offense, and by the end of the year, you feel very good about your play caller and quarterback pairing for the first time this century.
That's it.
If that's 8 and 9, fine. If that's 11 and 6, fine. That stuff is less important to me. I think those are the benchmarks for me in terms of what the success would mean for the Bears this year.
I think if we
Robert,
just go ahead feeling like Ben Johnson fixed Caleb Williams in the way that we wanted to, like, that's it. Like, how you get there doesn't really matter.
Robert, you might actually know this. Do you know how many times since the year 2000, or no, excuse me, I went back to realignment in 02. Since realignment, do you know how many times the Bears have been a top half of the league scoring offense?
2013. Oh, well, scoring offense is hard. Scoring offense, 2012, they probably were because of all the turnovers that year, and they were put in good, just decent field position.
If I was unclear, just offensive points, like.
So 2013, right? That was the Josh McCown year.
2013.
So I think 2013, 2018, they were a top half of the league scoring offense with all the nonsense. Those might be the only 2 years.
They did manage it in 06, even if you take
that's
out,
right.
Yeah,
That's right. Yes.
Even if you take out
3?
how good the defense was. That's the 3. 3 times.
Yeah. So
in 23 years.
Yeah. We don't need to do the whole Bears offensive history again, but that is it for me. And I will say, last thing here, I think that the relationship between Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, I'm fascinated by it because I think that Ben Johnson has pushed him extremely hard. And I think that he has explicitly, Caleb Williams said, I want this. And the word that somebody said to me when they were describing that relationship when I was in Lake Forest a couple weeks ago, it was just, yeah, it's intense. Like, it is intense. There is a real, like, I'm going to push you here and I'm going to see what you can handle element to this relationship. And we'll see how it works out. But this is one more thing that, as I'm trying to build the case for, okay, if this fails, I at least support how we got here. That's another example. If this fails, I at least support what they're trying to do here to actually make this work in a way that it has never worked before.
I think you nailed it. I don't think a whole lot needs to be added. I want to throw in one caveat that I don't think you're going to like. If that comes to pass, like if Caleb looks promising and the offense is top half of the league and all of that stuff happens, they'll be playing relevant football games in December. Like they will be, it might not be like to win the division or anything, but they will be playing games that matter toward the playoff picture in December, which I'm sure sounds terrifying, but also would
It
be an
sounds great.
incredible. Yeah.
I would absolutely love to watch meaningful December football games. Right now, all I know is I'm going to take my wife to that first Monday night game. It's going to be her first NFL game she's ever attended. I'm going to be apologizing to her in the second half as Brian Flores dismantles that first game. And I will say that I'm joking. I think it will look uneven for the first month to 6 weeks of the season. I think this will be a process. If it looks ugly for the first half of the year, it would not surprise me. I think let's reserve some judgment about this until we get a little bit more time with this group to play together. I don't think it'll be written in stone by Halloween what the Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams experiment looks like. That's the last thing I will say.
If the Bears hang 40 in that game, we got to do an emergency pod. Like we'll wait till you get home
I'll do
from
it from the
Soldier
car.
Field.
I'll just be. I'll call you guys. I'll call you guys on the walk from Soldier Field back to where I park my car on
Perfect.
Avenue. Thanks for watching the Athletic Football Show. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with us. Like and comment on this video, and we'll see you next time.